Okay, so this is going to be a quick demonstration of how to use the Newton HUD. It's going to cover the basic functionality of the system, and we've got Sela on screen to help us out with that. There's going to be a bit of detail involved, but I won't go into the advanced cells. Besides that, we're just going to run down the way the HUD's intended to be used and some of the functions that are being added to version 117, which is the version you're going to see here. So without further ado, we dive right in. So if you go to your inventory, when you receive the HUD, you're going to get this folder. And inside this folder, we're going to start, there's the HUD itself. And there's a series of gestures which trigger certain animations. There's no buttons in the HUD for these animations, but these come straight out of the G2 HUD and have the exact same function in the referee HUD. They trigger an animation on yourself. Finally, there's this instruction card. I suspect it gets hidden most of the time because nobody has ever read it. It's quite long. It covers in great detail literally everything, but we're going to cover the basics here so you don't need to worry too much about that. So the first thing you'll want to do to actually make use of the HUD is just go ahead and put it on. So add to current outfit the entire folder because you want to activate the gestures too. So the first thing we want to talk about is let's take a look at some of the gestures that were in there. See, they've all got hotkeys, but we'll just open one up to have a look. And so you'll see it's got a trigger command /impact, so you could type that at any time. But it also has a hotkey of F3, which means you could just press F3, and that's what you'll usually do. So when that happens, you'll come down here, it'll send corner impact to the ref HUD on 67. Play a sound, and then play a second sound. So let's see what that looks like. The idea of that one is, so F3 is you've gotten thrown to the ropes and you slam back into it, run towards it, and turn around, of course. Okay, so anyway, normally the ref isn't using that one too often. There's 3 ways to get into the ring, so let's just go through those real quick. So first one we have is ring in, F11. You just sort of move yourself through the ropes during the animation. So the gestures do more than just play the animation, particularly these ones. They also send the command which makes the ropes phantom so you can actually get through them. So F5 slide, lets you slide under, and vault just lets you jump over. So the other 2 that it comes with, F12 clear, just lets you abort any state that you're currently in, and climb apron is just how you get up onto the apron. That gets you up on the apron, and then you can just, boom, back in. Let's look at the actual functions on the HUD itself. The HUD provides 3 major functions for you. It provides an animation override. It also provides a comms monitor. This helps with keeping track of the match card. And then finally, it also provides a targeting ability. Now, previous versions, this let the wrestlers target you so that they could do attacks and beat up the ref. It's now possible to target back. So let's go through basic usage of the HUD first. I'm just going to run down the buttons real quick and explain what they're all for. I'm not going to look at the advanced stuff, which is the newly added targeting, until a little further on. So let's look at the basic stuff. This is applicable even to earlier versions of the HUD. The first thing we've got there is standing check. And that's this little animation that they do at the beginning of a match. The idea is that you approach the wrestler in the corner, and then you hit standing check and just pats them down to make sure that there's no foreign objects. The second thing we've got is the drop check. You'd use this if they're on the ground. You want to check for submissions or anything else you might want to crouch for. To get out of the drop check, just use clear. You can push the clear button or press F12. There's the arm raise animation, which is frankly kind of useless right now, but it's not as of version 117, and I'll show you that. It's for raising the victor's hands. And again, use clear or F12 to get out of that. The buckle check you use at the beginning of a match. It's just to check that the turnbuckles are tied, and it's just a little pre-show ritual. That will loop until you press clear. Now we've got a set of 3 pin moves here. Leaping pin lets you jump down for a pin count, and usually you move forward a little bit when you're doing this. Pin drop just drops on the spot. When you're finished with a pin, either one of these 2, use pin get up to smoothly get back to a standing position. And I'll go through sequencing in a little bit just to show you how you would normally use these in practice. Right now I just want to cover what they all are. After a pin count, if it wasn't a 3 count, you usually need to tell the audience what you actually counted just to make it really clear, because Second Life can be confusing and you don't know if what you just watched was deliberate or lag. So just, and then we have 3 versions here, 0, 1, and 2. 0 is new to 117. If you hit just 0, so you'll see no count comes up. You hit 1, sorry, there we go. 1 count. And if you hit 2, you get 2 count. And that's just how you end a count sequence. You can argue, wiggling head, pointing, looking angry. C-pull is corner pull. It's kind of useless in the 116 and earlier, but you could sort of use it to get between people. So for neo finish, you'll want to be down in the drop check, and it just lets you ring the bell from a crouched position. Ready? You get between the two wrestlers, get your arms out, and ask if they're ready to go. When they are, you hit go. Now, Ready does an additional feature that's hidden underneath. There's two sound effects that the Rough HUD plays. There's the bell and there's thumps. When you play this, preloads those sounds so that there's no lag when they're played. So there's actually a 2-second lag after you push Ready before you can push anything else. Warning, Seela's fond of this one, just sort of a, hey, don't do that. X mark, use this one if you need to call for medical assistance. Finally, to the back, you're out of here. These are the actual pin counts. You'll almost always preface these with a leaping pin or a pin drop. However, as of version 117, if you don't, it will automatically do a pin drop, so there's no more snapping to the match. You'll actually cleanly get down, and I'm going to show you that now. Okay? Because I hit the 1 happens as soon as she finishes getting down to the mat. But 1 is extra special. 1 plus. The plus means you can keep adding on. So I've done 1, 2. Maybe it's a slow count for some reason. 3. No, the wrestler wants a 5 count. Roll your eyes, okay. 4. 5. When you're tired of counting, you normally would use pin get up. As of version 117, again, it will automatically detect if that's what you want if you push one of the just buttons. If you don't push one of the just buttons, you can't snap to any other one. So use pin get up when you're done. 2 count, pretty straightforward. 1, 2. And as of 117, she'll automatically get up. In older versions, you need to hit pin get up. There's also now 2 plus X. If you maneuver right up there and hit the plus X, you'll automatically get the half count without having to time it yourself. And again, automatically gets up. 3 count always gets up automatically. Now you'll notice nothing else happens after those counts. You have to manually hit the bell if that's what you mean, and I'll show you that in a moment. Now the other thing is this X. X is half a count, like we saw on 2 plus X. If you just hit it by itself, she'll do half a count and get up. So in that case, then you'd probably follow with no count. You can also do a 1, and then manually hit hex. And there's no need to do 2, and you can't do 3X. So finally, there's the fast 3 count. That's what the 2 arrows here mean. It's good practice to push clear anytime you're between moves. This clears all the counts so that you don't actually continue an old one. Particularly important here with Count Plus. Count Plus does a standing count, and it will let you count up to 20. So you use this if you're counting someone out of a corner, out of a chokehold, out of the ring. So it will remember the count by default for 45 seconds and let you continue going as long as you hit within that time. Now, there's no warning to you if the count auto resets, so be aware of that. You've got to count at least once every 20 seconds or you're going to lose your count. You can also push clear to reset the count immediately. Finally, when you finally clear out the match, there's the bell. Indicates match is over. All right, we're going to come back to these. These are administrative controls. Let's move up into this white area here. This is the mini cell HUD. You'd use this if you need to do minor cells. If you need to do more complicated cells than what's in here, then use a separate cell HUD. They're pretty lightweight. 90% of the time, this is adequate. In fact, because of the KO button, you don't even need the wrestler to target you, as long as you can coordinate hitting that button at the right time. So KO does just what it says on the box. It knocks you down. And there she is. So once you're down, you have 2 options for cells. On back moves you to the standard wrestler flat on his back pose. You'd only use that if you have other animations you want to chain into. Normally G cell, ground cell. That'll just do a cell back. When you're ready to get up, you have 3 options. Rise does a middle of the road average get up. Up stun gets up stunned and wobbly. And up hurt gets up very slowly. So rise. And back down you go. And up stun. And they'll continue to wobble until you hit clear. And one more time. And up hurt. As you can see, it takes a while. Let's look at the administrative functions now. So the first one we have is a hidden one. If you click the version number itself, watch chat, you can actually see the lag. So you can see the ref HUD version, the free memory in script A, and the timer latency. And it will give an approximate rating as to whether this is good or not. You can hit that at any time if you're curious what the lag is like. And this refers to the actual lag between pressing a key and the key responding. So it's not server statistics or anything, it's actually timing how long it takes the command to run through the pipe. The next one we'll look at is this yellow circular target here. So this affects whether or not you can be targeted by other wrestlers using G1, G2, or G-Force. I'm not sure about other HUDs, they might work. It just lets you configure it in 3 modes. So the default mode that it comes up in is enabled, but they have to be in the same group as you. If you switch it to no filter means anybody, group is ignored. And you can hit it one more time to completely disable it. When someone targets you, you'll get a pop-up box, you just accept or deny. So the fist represents the move monitor. It works the same way. It comes up by default, enabled for group only. Hit it once, and you'll get no filter, which means anybody, and hit it one more time, and it turns it off. This listens on channel 67, which means that you get just the moves. The speaker icon is the comms monitor, which is channel 63, and it works exactly the same way as you can see. Finally, we have the AO button, and this just turns the AO on and off. So as shipped, the AO only overrides your walk. It's usually advantageous to also override run, and I'm going to show you how to do that. The walk that it comes with is kind of goofy, so it's worth replacing anyway. It doesn't come with a run, so you still have the second life run. But if I turn it off, then you'll see that even the walk goes back to second life walk. And the last function is the Newton logo itself is a button. Click on that, it goes into half height mode. You lose a little functionality here, although less than you did with version 116 and earlier. The biggest one you lose is 1 plus goes away. 1 now is just a 1 count. There is no 1 plus because there's no button to get up. So boom, 1, and up. There's not a lot of reasons to shrink down into half size mode, but it's there if you need it. Let's talk how do you use it in an actual show. Generally, and you don't have to, this shows will vary a little bit on your routine, but generally Sela's process is she's going to come out and the first thing she's going to do is check the ring. The idea here is she's supposed to be looking under the ring. So I'll just use drop check to sort of get down, and I'm a little too far forward here as you can see, but don't correct it. It's more obvious you've made a mistake if you fix it than if you just live with it for 2 seconds. But the idea is she's checking under the ring to make sure there's no weapons, that everything's tightly secured and all that fun stuff. And so she'll do all 4 corners. If anybody has a better animation for this where she's actually using her hands to dig, that would be really nice. I've looked around a bit and the only one I can find is get weapon, which is kind of awkward. Drop check, one more, around to this side, drop check again. Alright, so now we've checked the ring outside, we're going to head up. So Sela will climb up the stairs. If you're a bigger person, you might just use climb apron, you might vault over. Sela uses F11 to go through the ropes. Then checks all 4 turnbuckles. Again, the conceit here is you're making sure they're tightly secured and properly attached. You can also use this anytime the wrestlers knock a turnbuckle off and you want to put it back. Just play the animation while you're putting it back. So you see I missed here a bit, but again, you're only here for a couple seconds. Don't be too fussed about it. Not really mentioning it, but the other thing I'm doing is during the buckle check, you'll notice I'm turning my camera in the direction I want to walk. This is so that as soon as I start walking, she turns automatically and I don't have to waste time slowly turning the second life way. So I hit clear and then I just walk. And then here we are, we're all done. I sort of tend to position her here until the wrestlers arrive. Okay, now, so after the show has started, the next thing that's going to happen is the wrestlers are going to come out and you're just going to do a standing check. And so for that, let's go ahead and bring out a wrestler. And of course they're showy and they do their stuff. Alright, let's cut that music. So there's our wrestler, he's already in the corner, so we're just going to walk up to him. let them do their things, give them lots of time, because they'll often pose, climb the turnbuckles and stuff. But once you're ready, walk up and just hit standing check. And then you'll normally say something in chat, just like, Danner is clean, just so the audience knows. This is a good time to mention something kind of unrelated to the HUD, but there's an option in Firestorm that gives you this nice little button. And with this button, you can just set it to shout, and then everything I say is shouted. It's very useful when you're in the ring. Once you've done that, you go over, you check his opponent, you say, okay, you're clean. Sort of set your camera up between the two so you can get to the middle of the ring. Face perpendicular to them like that, and hit the ready. Now, Sela will ask, are you both ready? And you can use macros or whatever for that. Some wrestlers get really impatient. They'll be like, just ring the bell, just ring the bell. Accommodate the situation that you're in. Anyhow, once you've got all that, you'll usually want the camera facing like this, towards your character's back. And what you're going to do is you're going to hit go, wait for the animation to play out, and as soon as it stops, walk towards the camera. This way, as soon as you let go of the direction, you'll turn around and face the wrestlers. If you move too early, you'll slide because the animation doesn't let you move your feet. So just give the animation a moment to play out, and I'll show you here. Okay, and as soon as I let go, she turns back around. So now you're watching the action. Now, Danner doesn't have an opponent here, so he's just going to come out. He's going to do his thing. We can see his moves are coming up on the HUD there. And then he's going to go for a quick cover. And so now it's your time. So he's down in a pinfall. So depending on how much time you have, how rushed it is, and where you're positioned, sometimes you'll move into place. Sometimes you'll just drop right where you are. But let's move Sela around. I'm going to have her run over to here. You want to get there as quick as you can, because remember, you're holding up the match until you've done the count. And let's say this one's a 2 count. I'm going to show you the old mechanism first. You drop down. Then you hit the 2 count. Then you get up. And then you say just 2. But let's pretend we're on the new mechanism. Let's do it the newer, simplified way. So you come around to where you're going to be. You just hit 2 count. And then while she's doing it, you can get your mouse ready. As soon as she's finished standing up, hit just 2. Get up. He's going to come around. He's going to do his stuff. He's going to boom, boom. Over here. Dunk. Climb the ropes. All the stuff wrestlers do. And then he does it. He lands the perfect finish. But Sela's way over here, so this is a good opportunity for your leaping pin. And then a 3 count. Get ready for your bell. Just like that. That's the basics. That's the raw interface of the HUD. That's how you go through a match and do all the individual parts. Naturally, you're following the comms card, and hopefully you're able to talk to the wrestlers during the match. It helps so much to be able to talk to them. Okay, so let's cover the case real quick where the wrestler wants to target you. This works pretty straightforward. Usually they'll target by whatever mechanism they do with their HUD normally. So Danner's just sent a target request, but he just got an error message out of GeForce that says, hey, target not found. Sometimes some of the HUDs require the referee HUD to announce itself in advance. It doesn't announce itself all the time. So all you do if they say, hey, I got target not found, is go down to the circular target icon and cycle all the way through. If they're on a different group, then you'll also want to go to no filter, but these two are on the same group. By cycling all the way around, it forces the ref HUD to send out a broadcast that says, hey, Russell HUDs, I am here. And so if I try Danner's HUD again, it should work now. And there we go. So you get this pop-up box, tells you who, and you just hit yes. And so now Danner is able to play animations that will animate me as well. So let's go ahead and put Danner back into his corner as if he just entered the ring. So now, when I want to do the corner check, Sela's going to walk up to him like always, but instead of pushing standing check, I'm going to push the little target icon next to it. This is going to do a scan. The person that you want to target has to be within 5 meters. That's a little more than half the ring. And the person has to be in the same group with you. Must be same group. There's no filter option for that. So I'm just going to hit that. It's going to say, okay, I found Danner. That's who I want, so I click 1. It's now sent a request over to Danner for permission to animate, and the wrestler should be used to seeing that. As soon as he hits yes, the animation plays, like as soon as he hits yes. And you'll also notice the target appears here. You've got the animation playing. Now, the target remains until you clear it. So I can just hit stand check now, and it will automatically know that we mean Danner. I don't have to retarget until I want to. But you're the referee. You almost never deal with the same person twice in a row, so I'm going to have to cross the ring and check on his opponent. So I don't want to do a standing check here. That would animate Danner. Watch. So for casual ref HUD use, get into the habit of using the target icon. Either always use it or never use it. Don't be intermittent on it. Now let's bring Danner out, and he's just won his match. So you want to be more or less facing each other for the arm raise. So again, target, request. Once he says yes, it starts immediately. Now it will end after a few seconds automatically for you. The wrestler's going to need to manually clear themselves. So just make sure they know about that. All right, so let's look at the final case, the corner pull. This is when somebody needs to be yanked forcibly out of the corner. So let's pretend that Danner is doing some Muay Thai knee lifts, and you've told him, hey, out of the corner. Now the wrestler will have to cooperate a bit by moving, or otherwise they move back to the original position. But you just come up behind, roughly on this side, and go ahead and hit the target. They'll get permission, and boom, hey, get out of there. And he's going to have to agree to clear and move away, and then you're going to have to just sort of watch him. So that's the basics of the new target function. But there's one little catch to it. Because the ref HUD can play full animations, just like the wrestle HUD, it can actually play full attack animations as well. All you have to do is load the animations themselves into the HUD and activate the gestures. So for instance, Sila's got a dropkick that I can demonstrate. If I want to target Danner without using one of these target icons, I can manually do it with 7 target. And this is just like the wrestlers are used to it. So I can hit that. It does same 5-meter scan limit plus must be same group. Danner has to answer yes. And then the target name appears. So now I can actually walk up to him and just say dropkick. And down he goes. It's very, 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 very rare that you're going to need that, but the functionality is there if you do. So the last thing I promised to show you was how to replace the walk animation. The problem is that most of the animations that you go out and buy are going to be no transfer, which means they can't be distributed with the HUD. But let's say you've gone to the trouble and you've exported the animation and you know which one you want and you want to make it work. I'm going to go ahead and load the walk and the run animations both into here for you to see. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to detach the HUD. The second thing we're going to do, and the one thing that I'm going to beg you not to skip, is we're going to make a copy of the HUD. It was as easy as saying copy, selecting the same folder, and saying paste. Now we have 2 of them. If we screw up, the original one is not impacted. So let's take the new one that we created and drag it to the ground so we can load the animation into it. If your animations are full perm, you can actually drag them in while you're wearing it, but if they're not, you have to do it on the ground. Now we're going to go and right click it and say edit, and that will bring up this. And this content tab is the one that we want. And this is a list of everything that's already in there. You don't want to mess with very much of it, but we're going to look at settings in a moment. However, any animation we want it to play needs to live in here. Let's find a nice walk animation. So these came out of one of the AOs you could buy back in the day. We can double click any one. We can say play locally and just see what it looks like. That looks fine. Let's go ahead and use that one. We just want to take a note on what it's called. In this case, DZ401-walk-N. Pay attention to uppercase and lowercase letters. They matter. And we're just going to drag it into here. And we're going to wait for this to refresh. That means the copy's done. Now let's also put a run in there. There's these DZs again. So let's just take a look at what this one looks like. Yeah, that looks fine. And we're going to just take a note on that name as well. DZ281-running. Again, watch uppercase letters. So we've got the 2 animations that we want. So we're actually done with the inventory steps. If you want to rename the HUD, this is the only time you can do it because of the no mod stuff that's in it. So you can actually just come in here and we can just say Sila. That's what I use to let me know that this is one of the ones I've modified. Close that, right click, take. If we go back into our inventory, you'll now notice that there's actually 3 HUDs in here because it made a copy when we took it back into inventory. It's never a bad thing to have too many. So now we're just going to wear this one. You probably want to take the old one and drag it to another folder so you don't accidentally wear 2 copies of the HUD. It might be confusing which one you were triggering and you might wonder why your stuff doesn't work. Alright, so we're wearing the HUD. Now we can do everything else while we're wearing it. So we're going to right click the HUD and say edit. And then we're going to go to that content tab again. And now we're going to scroll all the way down to find settings. This is where we change how it works. And so you can see version 1.16 and earlier, the settings card was much bigger than this. But because it takes a long time to read a long card, even if it's mostly unused, I made this shorter version for 17, just so that the ref HUD would boot faster. If you need a reference to what all the settings are, then you can load settings full example just to look at. The ref HUD ignores this file, so you can do anything you want with it. I am going to use it because we need to bring in the running configuration. So if we come back to the real cards, the first thing you'll see here is referee. This makes it go referee says 1, referee says 2, referee says blah blah blah. Usually I change that to my own name, and I like to leave referee in there so people recognize that it's different from the audience saying something, so I'll put Sela, the referee. And that will just change the text that comes out of the HUD when you're counting. The next thing we want to do is change walk anim to that one that we saved the name of. So I saved the name in another note card, and I can just do that. Now we want to change run as well. So if we come back to full example, we can see that run anim is listed here. So I'm just going to Control C to copy, come back here, Control V to paste. Got to get rid of the little hash sign. That means ignore. Just come down here, delete the old one, paste the new one. When you're all done making changes, you can just hit save. And as soon as you do, the ref HUD will automatically reset itself. So give it a couple seconds to do its thing. You can look at your chat if you want to know. As soon as it says it's ready, it's ready. So now, if we walk, you can see it's using our new walk that we put in. And if we run, you can see it's using the new run. So I hope you enjoyed this really brief look at the Newton Ref HUD. The only feature I did not cover was the advanced cells feature. And what that does is it allows you to send commands to your avatar or your avatar attachments during things like knockout, cell, ground cell, get up. It just lets you add a little more realism. For instance, I have Sela configured, and she's probably the ultimate example. When I hit knockout, first she will look startled, then her eyes will close and her tail will turn off as she hits the mat. I'm not sure if you caught that, hopefully you did, but her eyes went wide, her muzzle opened. And now that she's on the ground, her tail's not twitching anymore. When I switch to ground cell, her eyes will open halfway. I don't know if we can get in there and see that. And then when she gets right up, it will open her eyes and turn everything back on again. And that all happens automatically. The good news is that's fairly easy to put into the configuration file. It goes in the settings note card, and there's examples in full settings and in the documentation that I said not to read. However, the bad news is that the only way you can do it is if your avatar maker publishes the commands to make the face do things. You have to know what the commands are, what channel they go on and so forth. I've been able to get that for a couple of characters, but in the end it's just not something I can tell you how to do because it's different to every avatar. Fortunately, you don't need that to get a lot of functionality out of the Ref HUD. So I hope you enjoyed, and well, happy refing.